And thank you all so much for being here for this conversation about ease. I'm really excited to hear what all of us have to say about that topic. It's certainly something that feels like all of us could use more of. So, to start off the conversation, I'm going to introduce each of our speakers today. So, first of all, we have Natasha Fong, who is passionate about creating expansive experiences that draw people deeper into meditation and mindfulness. Previously a big firm consultant, Natasha benefited greatly from a practice of mindfulness to stay balanced, grounded, and present in her high pressure role. Having walked in the shoes of many of her students, she loves to share tools and techniques to help students with managing stress and developing focus and clarity. Natasha is a 200-hour RYT teacher trained under the Sivananda yoga lineage and combines modern science and research to make meditation accessible to the modern practitioner. Natasha has also been initiated into the Vedic meditation tradition and with S.N. Goenka Vipassana. Thanks for being here, Natasha.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited about this conversation.
Fantastic. Our second teacher is Shundo David Haye, who is an ordained Zen priest. He came from England in 2000 to live at the San Francisco Zen Center and spent 15 years in residential training, including 5 years of monastic practice at Tassajara. He helped found and run the successful Young Urban Zen Practice Group at the Zen Center. Although he loves the robes and the formal rituals, he's interested in reaching people who will never set foot inside a Zen temple. He's taught at tech companies, schools and colleges, yoga studios, retreat centers, and the county jail. He loves being outside, especially on a bike, and leads regular mindful hikes around San Francisco, as well as weekly outdoor meditation. Thanks for being here, Shundo.
Thanks for inviting me. It's lovely to be here with everybody.
Great. And our third teacher is Tessa Jonson, who is a yoga and meditation instructor specializing in yoga nidra. A Wisconsin native turned global nomad, she wandered for years, avoiding the status quo and instead searching for a meaningful life. Finally, she tried yoga and subsequently meditation through a 30-day online challenge and immediately knew that she'd found what she'd been looking for. That practice has since transformed her life completely, both inside and out. Now Tessa finds the greatest pleasure and deepest fulfillment in sharing and teaching all things related to the practices and philosophies of yoga, and in particular, yoga nidra meditation. She is passionate about making meditation accessible to everyone and feels like she is here to guide others to their own space of presence, healing, and divinity. She also loves fluffy kitties, the Grateful Dead, wandering in nature, and homemade tamales. Thanks so much for being here, Tessa.
Now I'm getting hungry. Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
All right, so to start our conversation, I would love to hear from each of the three of you. What do you think of when you think of ease? What does that word mean to you? So let's start with Natasha.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. So ease to me feels like spaciousness. It feels like flow. It feels like ability to breathe easily. And yeah, it feels like the opposite of tightness and constriction. So opposite of stress, stressful situations. And ease is just being easy.
Yes, I love that. I already feel more at ease just hearing you say all of that. Like, yes, love that. How about you, Shundo? What would you say?
Well, I've got to say, I'm watching Natasha drink what looks like a cup of tea, and I'm kind of envious that I don't have a cup of tea with me. And a cup of tea, being English especially, is, it's a calming routine, something that you know, you just do. It brings you simple pleasure. You can kind of just let go for a moment. The other one of those that comes to mind is a hot bath. You know, it's just like, it's me time. I can just totally relax. It's incredibly enjoyable. It's very quiet and slow. But you know, in a more general way, I think of alignment. When I think of ease, I think of like being in alignment with things. This is a word I often use in my meditations. And I think that can be an internal alignment and also just aligning with externals as well. And then I think maybe the other component, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is letting go.
Mm.
Yes, yes. You saying all of that makes me think of one of the main things that I notice when I am at ease is that there is such a lack of resistance. I'm so open and accepting of whatever it is that I'm in the middle of it. Lovely. How about you, Tessa?
Yeah, echoing a lot of what everyone said so far. And it's interesting. I keep thinking about its opposites. So it's like freedom from agitation, from stress, from worries, from this, the tightness that Natasha was mentioning. So kind of almost more of like a lack of those things and what's left, right? So like that tranquility, that effortless. I also thought about being in alignment and in flow. So things that just, when things just start happening without any trying, when it's like that letting go of just receiving rather than forcing or controlling.
Yeah. And as each of you is talking about this, I'm immediately thinking, well, of course, this is what we all want. All of these things that you're mentioning, why wouldn't we always want to be in that state of ease? But I'm curious if we can talk a little bit about, what is it that you found in your own experience or that you've discovered in your teaching that really gives you access to that really allows you to get into that state of ease, whether it's in meditation or it's as you're going through your daily life. And let's start with Shundo. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the prerequisite for me is a kind of mental spaciousness, which, you know, it's not directly related to how much I've got going on, but it's like how I can relate to what I've got going on. So, you know, I can be pretty busy, but if I have a sense of like, I do this, then I do that, and then I do that, and then I do that, and I don't have to worry about this thing because I'm focusing on this thing right now. So that just creating, you know, it's almost like inflating, you know, kind of the space balloon in my head so that my head just doesn't feel crowded with like, oh my God, I got to do this, then I got to do that, then I got to do that. So just giving myself that mental space is the really essential ingredient for me. So even if I'm busy, I can do that. It doesn't always work, but I can. So that allows, you know, for a little ease and focus on what is directly in front of me. So what am I doing now? Not what am I doing, you know, 3 days from now or next week or even later today. Like, okay, I'm giving this my full attention. And then that helps to create that kind of buffer, I think.
Yeah, I'm really hearing you say both that there's a combination of purity of focus, like steadiness and purity of focus, and then also that shifting of the mindset of rather than being caught by the situation that you're dealing with and caught in the stress, being able to have a little bit of distance from it and be able to see it almost more objectively as this is what's happening or what needs to happen, and here's how I'm choosing to relate to it.
And I don't know how to juggle, but it probably feels like juggling three or four balls. And like, you know, if somebody throws in an extra ball on top of that, then I'll probably drop them all. But, you know, if there's only 3 or 4 balls and I know how to juggle, then okay, I can probably do it. So, you know, just being aware of my limits around that as well, because it definitely all the balls do fall down from time to time.
Yes, I've definitely had that experience. How about you, Natasha or Tessa? What do you do to access that ease?
Yeah. Well, really related to what Shundo was sharing about being present in the moment and being present with the task at hand, which I found more accessible through my practice of mindfulness and meditation. And for me, it's also the permission to make space for that ease, that it's even amidst like stressful times when you've got a lot on, that giving myself permission to make space to find calm and relaxation is actually helpful to my state of being able to complete all the tasks that are coming my way, or stressful situations. And that I guess I've cultivated also from my meditation and mindfulness practice. That it's okay to make space for this, and it is good for you to have this self-care, so that you can be in a better space to deal with what life gives you.
Which runs so counter to what we automatically think. I've got so much to do, I've got to push harder, I've got to do more, and to instead pause and really take that moment, even if it's just a breath, even if it's just a drink of water, even if it's just a few minutes of meditation, to create more of that space. Yeah, it's surprisingly radical to do that for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I get caught up. I guess I'm maybe a little less aware of it until it's happening. And then I can really feel that clinging when I'm really, it's, for me, it always comes down to control when I'm trying to really force something to happen. Like right now I'm looking for housing. So like every day I'm like looking on the app and checking it. And I just realized like, this isn't helping. Like, so it's usually when I'm in it that I can start to reflect more on like, wait, this isn't how I show up in my life. Like, come on, Tessa, like, let's pump the brakes here and try a different route. So it's usually more for me when I'm in the middle of not being easeful, that I realize I need to take that softening, take that breather, try a different approach, especially when it becomes like this daily thing that's just not feeding me the way that I know that I am flourishing. When it just becomes something that's causing me more stress and more agitation, then that's a really helpful cue to change it up.
What
Yeah.
I really hear in that is, especially with Natasha saying permission, and what Tessa you're saying about, wait a minute, this isn't working. It's like mindfulness of our own self-talk is a huge gift that we can give ourselves through our mindfulness practice. It's one of the, I wouldn't say the last things to kind of drop into place for me, but I worked on a lot of other things before I realized like there's a lot of self-talk going in there, and if you're really mindful of that and actually working on positive self-talk and creating, as that word, just that word permission, like it already has like so much power. Like I give myself permission to do this, or like I realize that what I'm doing isn't how I want to show up, then somehow that's creating this space for us. And I think many of us, and I include myself in this, go through so much of the time with the self-talk running on automatic, and just yes boss, yes boss, yes boss, or anything you say boss, and we're not giving ourselves that mindfulness to say, wait a minute, that voice isn't helping right now. So I don't know if it's an advanced practice or not. It took me a long time to kind of figure that out, but it's been incredibly helpful in my practice.
Yeah, for sure. For me too. I was just thinking as you were saying that, Shundo, that in the early hours of the morning this morning, I woke up, and as I'm sure you have all experienced as well, there's a certain hour of the morning when I wake up, it's particularly difficult to get back to sleep, just far enough into my sleep cycle. And that self-talk that was running was some of the most critical I've heard in a very long time in my head. And it took me a while because I was not in sort of my usual state, having just being awake in the middle of the night, to realize that it was running me down. And at some point I realized, you know what, I've got to actually like get up and get out of bed and go shift where I am physically in order to change the way this is running in my head. I'm just sitting here letting it eat at me, and that's not helping anything. So it astonishes me that even after years of awareness of that self-talk, that it can still sneak up on me and get me and take me out of ease and put me straight into a whole lot of stress. I'm going to pause for a moment and ask if any of the people who are here with us live, if you have a question that you'd like to ask, you're welcome to come on your, turn on your sound and ask it. Any questions right now?
Yeah, this is really great. I love the idea of distance and self-talk. In terms, I think I mentioned a little bit, but in terms of creating that space, what is generally are you doing? Take breath technique. Now, Hannah, you just mentioned go to a different environment. What is what's common for the three of you to create that space?
For me, journaling, I really like that self-talk. It gets so much more obvious when you're writing it down, and it's just that much easier to interrupt. And then also a lot of times just stuff just needs to get out. So getting it down on paper, and I journal in the morning usually. So that's just a nice way to start my day, by getting those things out of me so that they're not plaguing me the rest of the day. So that's a really nice way to just, that I've found, to find that space and to kind of reflect on what am I trying to force to happen? What am I neglecting? What is already in alignment that I just need to recognize and honor? It's just that's been my helpful spaciousness space.
I'll jump in now, and so for me it's about the physical space, but then also the mental space. So in terms of physical space, I like to, as much as possible, just to be tidy and know where my things are, so that I find ease through my physical space, so that I don't have the blockages, or I can easily access what I need. And along with that, it's also I tend to be more minimalist, and so that for me helps me create a calming space. On the mental side, when I notice that I'm getting really caught up and just very stressed, I'll just take that 15 minutes to reset and do I like to just sink into a guided meditation and have someone else's voice just drop me into that deep state of relaxation. And sometimes I'll just be on the couch, or I set up my bolster and just lie down, so I'm slightly elevated. Sorry, I'll set up my bolster so it's on a slanted position, and lie back on that, and just drop into some relaxation, and afterwards I'll just feel so refreshed and reset, that I have that space, that mental space, to deal with what needs to be dealt with.
I mean, sometimes for me, if I know I've got a busy day, just doing the simple things like washing the dishes, making the bed, and putting on my work clothes, it's like that gets you from like, oh, I've got all these things to do, like, okay, those things are done, what else have I got to do? So there's something about just not having even simple chores hanging out in your head, just getting them done, and it's kind of like creating a stage, like, hey, I've done that, now what's coming? And then in the middle of the day, if it's very busy, I tend to stare out the kitchen window because I got a beautiful tree out there, and just staring at a tree for 5 minutes helps. And if I have more time, I'll go for a walk, because just getting a 15-minute walk in can make a huge difference, I think. Kind of like takes the mental pressure off, gives you a different environment. You get to look at something else. You get to just be moving very slowly, and come back. The problem's still there, but it's you've had a little time and space to deal with that. Yeah.
I really hear that. I really hear that, Shundo. That's one of my favorite ways to shift, is to be able to go outside, and especially to move while outside, helps me a lot. And I'm curious, what about those moments when you don't have the option of doing whatever it is that you want? When you're in the middle of a stressful situation or a stressful conversation, um, what are the things that you find help you to either even notice that you need to access ease, or to get you into a more easeful place?
Can I tell a story around this?
Please.
So I was back in London with one of my friends who kept saying, like, you got to teach me about meditation, teach me about meditation. And we were in central London, this is a few years ago now, before the pandemic, on a Friday night, getting on a tube, the underground train, at about 11 o'clock. And it was really crowded because everyone was coming out from the pubs, and it was very boisterous. I wouldn't say it was, there was any aggression, but there was a lot of energy, a lot of kind of alcohol fueled energy, and we were getting crammed into this underground train car. And so I turned to him and said, okay, you want a meditation practice? Like, how stressed do you feel right now? Like, are you breathing naturally? How tight did you feel here? Because I was noticing I was like tightening up around the ribs. And that's for me, is like that physical cue is like, that's a big one for me, because I spent a lot of time paying attention to this area. And so it's like, oh yeah, I feel tight around the ribs. Okay, can you breathe that out? Can you let that go? Can you drop your shoulders? Can you just take in the energy slightly differently, like noticing how it's impacted you, and then just making that little shift? And it's, it stayed with me for these years, because it was like a meditation lesson in the middle of the city, in the middle of, a crowd of people. But it was like, oh, yeah, I'm not feeling very relaxed right now. I don't have a reason not to be, but that's just happened. So can I make that little shift? So for me, it's all about, like, can you feel that tension, usually in the upper half of the body somewhere, and then can you breathe it out?
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. And my breath gets really shallow. Oftentimes I'll cross my arms and like hunch over, like just kind of that self-protection, of just not wanting the vulnerable spaces. So I can just feel that shutting down. I usually go into freeze mode rather than fight or flight. So if I just feel that I'm not breathing and I'm starting to show these physical tells as well, that something's not in alignment. And especially if you're in public, that's just so hard, but it's helpful to notice that. And so I will try to stand up a little straighter, roll the shoulders back and down, see if I can get my belly involved in the breath. And I can't remember where I read it, but there's a quote that or a philosophy maybe is more appropriate, but like, if you're worrying about something, you got two choices. Can you do anything about it? Okay, great, do it. If you can't do anything about it, then there's no need to worry. There's nothing you can do about it. So that's been really helpful to remind me, especially like when you're at the bank and it's taking forever. It's just like, can I do anything about this? No. Okay, so just shut up and wait in line and work on the deep breathing. So that's just a helpful check-in for me, is like, is there something I can actually change that will make this better? And if not, then I'm wasting my energy. So how can I better use it?
I think that was Shanti Deva originally.
Okay, thank you.
He may have borrowed it from somebody else, but I think that's the oldest place I've read it, definitely.
Excellent.
I was taught a helpful technique, which sometimes I forget, but so if you're in the middle of a meeting, for example, and you notice that you're getting stressed, like just rubbing your thumb and index finger together would it helps sort of bring you back to the present, like this sensory experience just literally helps you take a breath, and the breath helps modulate that stressful response. So it's also helpful to know the physiological response when you're in a state of stress, or there's a stressful situation, that what happens to you, and understanding that helps you go, okay, well, it's this is what's happening right now, right? So So in, as Tessa said, with the fight, flight and freeze response, what happens there? Like where our brains are wired so that we respond to threats back in the day, but also now like things that happen that aren't immediate threats, but are perceived by the body as threats. So these moments in meetings or out in public where you're like, oh, you know, there's just too much going on. So what's happening is that the amygdala sends, in that situation, sends a whole, all these chemicals through your body, like cortisol, to help you deal with that stress response. So back in the day when we had to run away from our predators, like that adrenaline and cortisol will help us either, I guess, run or freeze. But yeah, so knowing that that's what's happening physiologically, that your blood kind of rushes to your body and it kind of switches off your prefrontal cortex, and that knowing that that's your body's natural response, and then knowing how to approach it. So approaching it with the deep breaths. Those deep breaths signal to your body, I'm not in danger mode. So that's that I find helpful, just to know, okay, this is naturally happening, and I've got these tools like rubbing my fingertips or taking those deep breaths to settle down. So that's I don't always remember, so, but like it's yeah, it's through practice to go, okay, just do this and go breathe out. That's helpful.
And that's a good point too, Natasha, just that some people, if you are like incredibly anxious or whatever, it's really hard to take a deep breath, even though you know you should. So there are other techniques too to get out of that sympathetic response. So like finding the four corners of the room is really helpful, or like checking in with the five senses. That's sometimes where I go to first. I'm like, what can I taste? What can I taste? Just because like deep breathing just isn't accessible at that time. So having other ways almost to distract yourself so that you can return to that homeostasis is really helpful. But know that it's not always all about the breath, because I know sometimes that's really hard to do.
I like a good shake sometimes, you know, I like to have a shake out just to get some of the tension out.
I love all of those. And I often find that similar to what you're saying, Natasha, with the fingers, the being able to just feel whatever's beneath me, feeling my feet on the floor, my seat on the chair, is a great way to bring myself back into my body, instead of living in this space where everything's churning up here. I love what you mentioned about how helpful it is to understand that it is physiological, that stress is physiological. And so we can counteract it both physiologically and mentally, because what we do in our heads affects our bodies and vice versa. And it can be so empowering to recognize that and realize, oh, I can do something here. Even worrying clearly isn't the answer, like you were saying, Tessa. But what can I do? I can see the four corners in the room. I can taste what's in my mouth. I can shake whatever it is in that moment that might bring access to more ease. Yeah. Another question that I would love us to explore along these lines is why can it be so challenging for us to create ease?
I think our culture is not set up for it. I can tell another story here. It's one of my story I've told many times over the years. So one time I knew somebody from the Young Urban Zen group who worked at Facebook, and she invited me down to the Facebook campus, which felt a little bit like the Truman Show in a way. It was kind of this amazing place, you know, and everyone's kind of strutting around. Sorry, I won't say strutting around. Everyone was kind of walking around like, you know, being very smart and young and clever and everything. And you know, it was a long way to the room we were going to do the sitting in. And on the way there, I said, oh, I could use the bathroom, you know, that would be great. So she said, oh, just over there. And so I went in, and I was standing in the bathroom and the men's urinals, there was a coding problem, right in front of you as you were, taking a pee. And, I was like, okay, well, obviously they really expect you to be like, on it all the time. Unfortunately, the guy next to me wasn't paying attention to that because he was too busy texting. So I went back to the room and I sat down and go, okay, you people here are the only people here in Facebook not doing anything. And that's pretty radical, Because and other people were like doing, they had standing desks and walking desks and everything like that. And it's like just even the fact of taking half an hour out of Facebook and sitting, sitting and meditating, like that must be a pretty radical thing. And I don't mean to single out Facebook, but that was just the example that really brought it home to me that, even when you're, taking time out to, relieve yourself, you're somehow expected to still be on. There's still this expectation that something else has to happen. And I know we all do it, like eating while checking our phones or, reading the news or whatever it is. There's just an ongoing cycle, and we're encouraged to be productive. We're encouraged to bring it. We're encouraged to crush it. I don't know what it is we're crushing apart from our own spirits, like it's just, what are we bringing, and so just to step aside from that, what we call in Zen, taking the backward step, it's like, it doesn't happen. That's not what all the messages that we're getting. So the message is like constantly go forward, regardless of whether you feel able to do that or not, or whether you have the energy or the capacity or the willpower. That's what we're being told to do all the time. So anytime we step off, somehow we're doing this radical thing. And it's takes a lot of strength and courage to keep doing radical things, I think. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, hopefully.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I think, well, yeah, our culture's not built for it, but also we just have not habitualized it as part of our lives in general, being part of this culture, right? It's not something that we were taught how to do. So when you live your life on autopilot, or at least when most of our decisions are based on habits, based on things we do every day, and if it's not something we do every day, if we instead stress ourselves out and never take that break, it's going to be really hard to shift that habit. So I think it's just hard. Like our society and our homes and the whole structure of our lives is not built to support this. And then you have that counter viewpoint too, of like rest and relaxation being seen as laziness and not being productive, and that you're not living up to your potential. And so there's a lot of those negative thoughts about taking that time away, stepping aside, closing your eyes. There's just so much negativity associated with that too, that I think there's just that it gives people an easy excuse not to do it. It's like, well, I don't want to seem lazy. I don't want to seem like I'm not trying hard enough. And then I've also just another point that, and I think we fill ourselves with these productivity games, with this needing to do more, bigger, better all the time. I think a lot of that comes down to a fear of the stillness, a fear of the ultimate stillness, which is death. So I think a lot of people are just so uncomfortable with facing the truth of what happens when I stop thinking, when I turn off my phone, when I give myself that space. There's a lot of fear around it too. So I think it's just a whole multitude of things that are preventing us from it.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Like Tessa, what you said about all these productivity tools that are meant to make it more easy, our lives more easy, right? It's easier now to communicate more than ever in terms of logistically, sending an email or sending a text. But these things, ironically, have meant that we now think that we need to pack in more, and we do. We pack in our whole day with things that we don't have, so we don't have time to just have space. So yeah, we are in this culture where we're like, okay, so we've got whatever 12, 14 waking hours in the 14, 16 waking hours in a day. Let's schedule in everything, like all these things to do. But what about scheduling time to be? That's just not in our culture, is it?
And I do want to say, you know, meditation teachers are not immune from this either. You know, I have many conversations with colleagues, and it's like, how are you doing? I'm so busy. I've got so much on. It's like, yeah, we're meditation teachers. We should not be doing this. You know, I've made a real effort not to be so busy in the last few years, but it's hard, obviously. You know, culture, you know, expects us to be earning lots of money and to be buying lots of nice things, and if you're not doing those, somehow, you know, you're not succeeding. You know, succeeding. So. It's to say, it's not just people in tech, you know, everyone has that pressure on them.
And that brings up for me, you know, what is the role then for you personally, that as you've found, or that you believe, of meditation in helping you to create that space that you were describing, Tessa, the habitual, making the habitual space for stillness. What's the connection between the need, the desire we all have for ease, this hurtle that we have of the culture that we're immersed in, and meditation? That's a big question. Feel free to answer any part of it.
I have a thought, if Tessa's willing to cede the space for a moment.
Yeah, I'm still chewing on it. Thank you.
Well, it's just, you know, we can't make meditation something on our to-do list, you know, and it becomes something on our to-do list, but then we're lumping it in with everything else. And it's really important to remember that meditation is not, well, certainly the meditation I was trained in, this kind of Zen style meditation, is like no gaining ideas, no sense of attainment. You're not trying to get anything out of this. And so having that understanding or approach to meditation helps move it out of like, here's one more thing on my to-do list. I've got to meditate every day, otherwise I'm a failure there too. I just to understand that meditation isn't, you know, something else. It's a whole different ball game. It's a very different way of being in the world, and you know that allows us to create that kind of space that we don't get with everything else.
And just to write off that though, it is very easy to think of meditation as to do, and I myself sometimes I'll catch myself being, oh, I need to do this 20 minutes in the morning and do this 20 minutes in the afternoon, and then when I catch myself, like kind of when I'm in my meditation, I think, oh, okay, so this is only 20 minutes, and what, like then a switch comes in, and I'm like, okay, just like soak it in. Like this is space for me. It's not about needing to hit the time or the session that I've ticked that box, but it is really easy to fall into that and go, oh well, I'm a meditation teacher, so I need to have this daily practice, and if I don't, then I'm bad. But yeah, so I think it comes back to it's a practice, and you get into this mode of coming back again and again, to, okay, noticing I'm doing meditation, and then switching to I'm being. So it's, yeah, for me it's just coming back over and over.
And I agree that it shouldn't be a to-do, but I also think that's good place for a lot of people to start. Like, make it a priority, make it on your top 3 to-dos until, you know, it becomes a part of your habits. But I do think there does have to be a little bit of discipline and effort when you're starting the practice, especially when you haven't felt the benefits yet. You know, a lot of people think that their first try of a 20-minute, half an hour meditation, they're gonna all the problems will be over. And it's like, well, you kind of got to do it a little bit longer than that. So I think having a little bit of a structure, and I totally respect what you both are saying, that it shouldn't be about ticking the box. But I think it takes a little while to get there. I think it's helpful to have, like, to get a streak going, to build up that momentum so that you can start seeing the benefits, so that it becomes a part of your day, not something that you tick off your to-do list. So because that's how it worked for me, is that I had to have that structure. I had to have a sadhana, a committed time that I showed up every day. That's my personality. I needed that accountability.
Well, me too.
So I don't think that's it. Okay. Yeah, I don't think that's at all like a negative thing. I think that can be a really helpful place to start. But then I hear what you're saying, that it shouldn't eventually be something that you're like, okay, I just got to count down the minutes and then I'm done and I'm a good meditator today. But I do think, kind of to get back to the question of what the point, why meditate, why is that helpful, is that it just teaches you, it gives you that space where you can feel what it's like to be easeful. So it's almost like getting that neural pathway, that experience, getting more comfortable with that experience, so that you can turn to it at other points in your day, when you're at the bank or when your kids are driving you insane. You can call on those experiences, on those places that you've been, to pull it into your life and be like, okay, wait, I remember what I learned on my Koshin, like, let's bring that in now.
And I think a lot of that is actually the physiological component of it, certainly in the way that I
For
was taught.
sure.
You know, the yogic posture itself. You know, I'm sitting here on my cushion and half lotus and everything, which is, you know, the traditional way, but it's traditional because it's effective, and it's effective because it's balanced and stable and allows this kind of alignment that we're talking about, and we were talking about at the beginning. And so that in itself, and you know, and the Zen school is very clear about that. It's the posture itself that is the practice. Like, you don't have to do anything else except take the posture and be, as Natasha's saying, just be in that posture, and that gives you that sense of, you know, balance and alignment and spaciousness. And from that, you can move out into the world, especially once you've established that as a kind of viable way of being. I mean, obviously, it's not comfortable for everybody. It's not practical for everybody. And a lot of people can't do it, you know, in a traditional cross-legged posture. But there are variations that you can take on that allow this kind of stability and balance. And I think the body responds to that. I think that's why, you know, meditation has been passed down through so many human cultures over the centuries, because physically and physiologically it makes a lot of sense, and the body knows that, the breath takes it on, and the mind can go, oh, well, okay, maybe I can, you know, maybe that's not such a bad thing. So, you know, it's the practice, you know, as we're saying, it's the practice that informs us.
Well, and it's this interesting, what I'm hearing is that there's this interesting requirement for both discipline and structure in order to find ease, even though we associate, like we were talking about at the beginning, we associate ease with all of these senses of freedom and openness and looseness and so forth. That container of meditation on a specific schedule, or the particular posture, really helps create the space where the ease can come forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, where is the ease? I mean, the ease is in here. It's not anywhere else. And so we have to do this with our own body and mind. And this arrangement of body and mind is very well suited to it.
And I think that what you just said is, you know, something that all of us as meditation teachers are like, oh yeah, yeah. But for somebody who's never meditated before, it's like, wait, what? What do you mean the ease is inside of me? Isn't ease something I need to go chase? Like, I need to, and to what you were saying earlier, Tessa, about the fear that we have of being still and what may happen when we're still. It's almost counterintuitive to say to someone who hasn't meditated before, no, when you're still, then that's when there's the space for this ease that you're chasing outside of yourself to come forward.
And you know, what is it that stops that? It's mostly the thoughts. You know, so when you have the more holistic experience, then you get to have that. And it's, you know, you can't go finding someone else or somewhere else or something else to make you easy. it's just not going to happen. So it has to be, this internal alchemy that meditation offers.
Yeah, I agree that there's certain element of discipline, but I also like to think of it as like a slight shift in that, and a slight nuance of that is coming to it, approaching it like it's ritual, and it's something yummy and lovely to come into. So thinking of routine as ritual, I'm coming to my seat, I'm coming to my bolster, and it's a reward. It's a lovely part of my day that I find is helpful for me to come back as well.
I love
And just
that.
to have that like sensory experience as well, so that you have like your body, right? It knows like it's about time to meditate because I'm in my space, I smell my smells, I've got this here. So it just further enhances it as well. It makes it even easier to turn inward when it's something that you're used to and a surrounding you're used to. Yeah, that's beautiful ritual for routine.
And we take that even to another level when we do it together too, when we have the one of the things I love about being able to do the classes that we do together at Within is that we are together. We're not just sitting on our own. There are other people who are doing this at the same time, and that reinforces that sense of ritual, and also that under us also there's that sense of accountability of, well, everybody else is going to be there, and the teacher I love is going to be there, and so I'd better be there and make this, continue my commitment to this ritual.
And just to say, when we used to, and hopefully when we will again sit together in the same space, like the energetic harmonization that happens through that. And in my time at the county jail, that was a very strong thing. Like people would come in, they'd be frazzled, they'd be detoxing, whatever, wouldn't be able to sit still, but somehow instead of just being the room just kind of settles down into this harmonious stillness, which is, if you've never felt that, it's kind of hard to believe, but it's really incredible. And that's something I've missed so much about not sitting together in person, just that kind of feeling of the harmony of energies happening. And that's all a part of like the physiological response too, because as we feel, and I can still remember my first retreat, like the person who sat next to me was just so still. It just like, he's doing so well. And part of it was, I need to be trying to be as still as him, but it was just like, it was relaxing, that this person could just be there for that.
Yes. And I'm wondering, as knowing that we only have a little bit of time left, I have one more question related to how meditation and ease work together, which is, what do you do when you're sitting in meditation and it's not easeful? Whether it's that you have something going on physically that's difficult, or you're grappling with a difficult emotion or thoughts. What do you do when you find yourself in that situation?
If it's a physical unease, I always like to invite myself and my students to shift. Like if you're not comfortable, then adjust, make a little adjustment so that you can find a bit more ease physically. Thinking with the, I guess, mentally, if I'm grappling with something and I'm finding it difficult to come back into like my meditation and focusing on the here and now. It's about allowing. It's about knowing, okay, well, just noticing that this is what's happening, and every day is going to be different. My circumstances today is different from yesterday. It's different from tomorrow, and giving yourself that space and permission to be in this state would, for me, like I feel less stressed about being stressed, and yeah, it's lost my train of thought a little. It's just giving your mind that space as well. It's knowing that your mind is there to give you thoughts, and it's to, you know, that monkey mind is so trained to think about the future or the past that sometimes you can't cage it. You just have to sort of let it go, right, and what else, and then eventually that will quiet down.
Yeah, I
So
hear
just noticing.
like, yeah, just building on what you're saying, Natasha, just kind of cultivating the witness. So just like I try to sit with it like, oh, that's interesting. I'm still thinking about that. Oh, I'm really annoyed about this thing. It keeps coming up. So just taking that opportunity when like the mind is not still, talking to that mental agitation, just to notice what it is then. So what is going on, what is on my mind, and maybe I'll write some things down to explore later. And I do, if I'm really restless, I'll do asana, just do yoga movement, and have that more as my meditation. I'm not very strict anymore with what meditation is or what it has to look like, or that it has to be in stillness or that it has to be seated, or I've kind of let all of that go personally. So what do I need if this isn't working? Would something else serve it better? Or am I just like trying to avoid some uncomfortable thoughts or emotions here? So kind of having that discernment of, am I avoiding it? Or is this actually going to help me go deeper into it? So taking that into account, and okay, no, I do actually just need to stretch. So then taking that route is the better route. But oh no, I'm actually trying to push away this anger that I'm feeling. So it's important that I just stay here and feel that. So that's how I approach it. It's just like, what am I trying to do here? Am I trying to avoid, or am I trying to deepen?
Yeah, and again, that just comes back into alignment. Just this is where I am today. This is what it is. I'm a messy thinking person today, and taking off any kind of cap that says I failed at meditation today, because we're so ready to put that cap on. It's like, oh, that was a terrible meditation session, but you were meditating, okay? You were on the cushion, you were on the seat, whatever you were doing. Even if it didn't go the way you wanted it to do, you were still doing it, and you noticed that you were having a bad day at it. So that's not a failure of meditation. It's another meditation.
I like to say that if you're trying to meditate, you are meditating.
Exactly.
Right? Because so many people, that we just have this idea from whatever media sources of what it is and what it should look like, and how you can be completely blissed out. And it's like, it's not always the case. So having that room for experimentation, that permission to just be with whatever has to be seen or be felt.
Yeah, that strikes me as really important, because there is such a misconception that meditation does mean, oh, as soon as I do it, I'm going to experience this state of complete bliss, and it's always going to be accessible to me. Like, well, actually, every time I sit, I don't know what's going to happen, and my job is to be there with whatever is happening. That's in some ways, that's not actually an easy thing to hear when you're a beginning meditator. You're like, oh, I thought this was my ticket. Like, well, it could take more practice to be able to be more at ease with whatever it is that's arising. Yeah. Well, I have really enjoyed talking with all of you about this. I'm so glad that we could get together and talk about ease today. Before we head out, I wanted to invite each of you to share a little bit about what you teach and when you teach at Within, so that people can be sure to come and join you in your classes. So let's start with Tessa.
Yeah, right now I teach on Wednesday mornings at 6 Pacific, 8 Central, my time, for the next 10 days. And then I'll be taking a little hiatus. I'm moving over to England, actually. And so transitioning there. And then once I'm settled come June, I'll pick that Wednesday class back up, and then hopefully find another space to get that more of the yoga nidra style guided relaxation in again. But so that's what I love to teach, is particularly is the yoga nidra. But my Wednesday class, I kind of take a lot of those concepts and then we just play with one or two of them. So body scans, breath awareness, breath work, things like that.
Fantastic. How about you, Natasha?
Well, I teach weekly in our online studio. So I actually just taught the hour before this conversation. So Tuesdays, 3 p.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. my time in Sydney. And I teach a guided relaxation. So it is in the style of Yoga Nidra. And that is my love as well. That was the thing that got me hooked into meditation when I was consulting and sleeping for, for 4 to 6 hours a day, and not getting enough sleep. And I found Yoga Nidra really helped me with resting deeply in a shorter amount of time, and then feeling like I could reset. So I do love sharing that practice, and yeah, I find it really helpful in the afternoons to, like I said before, like when I'm in the middle of something and I'm just like, oh, I feel so cluttered and too much is going on. Just taking 15 minutes to do that style of relaxation meditation really helps me reset. I feel like afterwards I feel a tingling sensation through my body, like I just feel reset. Yeah, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, guided relaxation.
Great.
I'm noon Pacific, so on Wednesday, so tomorrow, and tomorrow's a special Earth Day, Earth Week celebration. I'll be out in Golden Gate Park, sitting in nature. It's Zen style sitting, so I don't talk very much. I talk at the beginning and then we discuss at the end, but there's a lot of silence in there. And just to put a plug in for nature as a gateway to ease that's available to hopefully all of us in some form or other, even if it's just one big tree out in the yard. So I'm excited to do an outdoor meditation for within tomorrow.
Great. And Natasha, you're also doing an Earth Day meditation on Thursday, right?
Yes. So Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, and it'll be Friday, 8 a.m. Sydney time.
So I hope that that everybody can get outside for those meditations, so that they can experience that connection with nature as you're leading them. Thank you all again so much for being here, and I hope that we'll be able to chat about more topics again another time. Have a wonderful day.